Let's talk about escapism. Most of you have probably heard of it, but for those that haven't, escapism is basically engaging in activities that bring pleasure or entertainment to sidetrack oneself from day-to-day life, sadness, or even depression. Pretty much any activity can become a form of escapism if it's being overdone. Here are a few examples: eating, sleeping, or even exercising. There are a few forms of it though that are very popular these days, which haven't been around for a very long time yet, and they might be the most overlooked ones. Those being media such as video games and social media. Screen times today have increased by a tremendous amount, especially those of young people. It has been more widely agreed upon for video games to be potentially addictive, and that was even before they were made to be more addictive like they are today, by including features that time gate things, for example, or force you to play a lot within a certain time frame, or to play each day to earn bonuses from daily logins. But what I personally believe to be more harmful and destructive is social media. Take Instagram and TikTok for example. Both provide an infinite, seamless stream of short-form content. They personalize your feed to fit your preferences as well as possible, with the goal of taking your time whilst milking and destroying your dopamine receptors. Also that the people behind these platforms can make millions over millions. They make that money at the cost of all their users. The transaction that is basically happening here is the following. You watch content on these platforms plus the advertisements, they get money. So you're really just giving them your time, and by that you make them money. Most content that you watch on there is really just making your brain cells rot away, almost chipping away at your brain capacity and not really contributing anything of value to your life. I believe what makes young people so susceptible to overdue escapism is that they grew up with all these new media, but at the same time, most of them never really learned to use these forms of media in moderation. Overdoing escapism can quickly develop into a vicious cycle that continuously lets one spiral down further and further into a rabbit hole, because social media temporarily shifts one's mind away from their problems and brings fleeting happiness. Fleeting because we indulge in acts of instant gratification. Watching reels doesn't make one sustainably happy. Not only that, but always playing video games or consuming content on social media can lead to sadness or even depression. Earlier I've said that escapism is used to sidetrack from negative feelings, but that won't work if the escapism itself is causing them. Instead of doing things that actually make us move forward and see progress in one's life, people will often just dive into escapism and mindlessly consume various media with no end in sight. With social media, you constantly look at people showing their own lives, which they make out to look ideal on purpose, deceiving people into thinking their own lives aren't good enough, whether they want people to feel that way or not. With video games, you build up and spend time on something that holds no value for your actual real life in the physical world. Both the video game and social media industry require us to give them our time in order for them to flourish. But social media is way more predatory with that, in my opinion. I mean, how is one expected to ever stop consuming content when you can just endlessly scroll and scroll and scroll, and it'll just continue to give you content and more content and more content? I think it is important to internalize that watching TikToks, Instagram Reels, and yes, also playing video games does not get you any progress in life. I'm not saying that everyone needs to be an overachiever, but you should at least make some use of your potential and not let it fully go to waste. There's so much that we could do, but too often we decide, or it's necessarily not even us that decide, we let our computers decide, whether it be desktop, laptop, smartphone, or gaming console, what we're going to do for hours a day. Being present is important to combat these modern media which prey on our attention, and in the case of social media, even destroy our attention span. But at the same time, it is very difficult to be present when we're constantly exposed to these dopamine rush inducing things. This may seem silly, but have you ever thought about how people lived before social media, video games, and so on? Can you imagine living without these things nowadays? It sure would be kind of peaceful, but also quite unrealistic in the sense that you somewhat need them today, mainly social media, to actually communicate with people. However, we shouldn't just forfeit our attention span in order to experience short-term fun from Reels or TikToks. We should try to keep the distraction which these media can create at a minimum throughout our days. I'm not saying that it's all just black and white, but a moderate and mindful consumption of these modern media would be a way better approach than to mindlessly indulge in them without caring about how much time passes during one session of gaming or scrolling. Social media can be used to learn new stuff and to also stay in touch with people, and video games can obviously actually be entertaining and also foster creativity. In the end, the goal should just be to live life in the physical world as much as we can and not in front of a screen. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching.